Clio's recent $900 million Series F funding round, which elevated its valuation to $3 billion, is a significant milestone in the global legal tech industry. This historic raise, the largest of any legal tech company, positions Clio to drive substantial advancements in AI and tech solutions for legal professionals. With backing of major investors such as New Enterprise Associates, Goldman Sachs, and Capital G, Clio plans to enhance its core product offerings, including Clio Duo. Its now generative AI platform aimed at increasing lawyer efficiency by automating routine tasks and leveraging data analytics. Today, I'm delighted to be joined once again in person at Canada House in London by Jack Newton. So, a very big warm welcome back, Jack.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure, and it's awesome to be recording here in Canada House in London. So let's get into the heart of it. Clio's mission is to transform the legal experience for all. We absolutely support that here at the Legally Speaking podcast and love collaborating with you. But with Clio's recent Series F funding, congratulations.
Thank you.
You've mentioned expanding AI capabilities specifically, like Clio Duo. So how do you envision AI technology transforming the legal industry over the next few years, and particularly for small to mid-sized law firms?
Well, I think about Clio's story and maybe even the legal tech story in terms of the last 20 years seeing two big moments. I think one was obviously the cloud in the mid-2000s emerging as the new dominant computing platform. And Clio was, of course, the company that ushered in the cloud to the legal industry back in 2008 when we launched our product. And over the course of the last 16 years now, I've seen a tremendous amount of adoption of our product in so many different parts of the legal industry. And I really do see AI as the second major chapter of technological innovation in the 2000s. And I think AI is going to be more transformative than even the cloud. And what we've seen at Clio is the data we're looking at shows AI adoption in just the last year already meeting the level of cloud adoption that took 16 years to gain over the course of 2008 to today. The appetite for AI is, as best we can tell, more or less unprecedented. It's really, for me, the first technological revolution and innovation that I've seen lawyers almost actively pull into their practice, as opposed to, I think many technologists feel like they've been pitching to lawyers over the course of the last 20 years. Here's why you should use the cloud. Here's some of the things you can do with the cloud. Here's some of the innovative things you can do with clients with the cloud. Here's the productivity gains you can have. Here's the improvement in total cost of IT ownership that you can see. But with AI, it's been flipped on its head, where it's lawyers asking us, we want more AI. Where's the AI? And it's really exciting to see that almost self-awareness in the legal profession around the opportunity that AI presents. And there's really never been a technological innovation like it in the history of legal technology. And I think it's going to be profoundly transformative to every area of the practice.
Yeah, and I just love your mindset. And I remember on an earlier interview when you were saying back in the day when you're having to really convince people about cloud,
yes,
and we need to move away from bricks and mortar. And now I can just see your passion for AI and everything you're doing, and it's really exciting. So let's talk more specifically then. You know, as I mentioned, you've had this huge raise. It's great for Clio. You're on the journey to transform the legal experience for all. You've had this focus particularly on that small to mid-sized law firm space. So how will this massive infusion of capital directly benefit those types of law firms now and also in the future?
Well, I see this infusion of capital into Clio actually as being something bigger than just Clio. And maybe I'll start there to start with. In the Series F, we saw almost $1 billion go into one company, but more importantly, into legal tech. And a lot of investors picked up their head when they saw that press release and took notice of the tremendous amount of opportunity and innovation that's happening in legal. And as we saw was the case with our Series D funding announcement back in 2019, which at the time was $250 million in a very large round by 2019 standards and even by today's standards, that helped pull a lot of attention and investment into legal tech. And I believe our Series F is going to do exactly the same thing. So one of the things I'm really excited about is just continuing to build on this story of Clio as a platform, and Clio as a platform that is not just driving its own innovation in the form of products like Clio Duo and other AI-related products we'll be announcing, but Clio being the platform for AI innovation that so many other companies in the AI space are building on top of. And that we'll be able to help fund through our Clio Ventures Fund, and we'll be able to help rapidly deliver focused AI value and innovation to lawyers without having to reinvent the wheel of what Clio provides as a core operating system for legal. And needless to say, the infusion of capital will help Clio directly. So I guess takeaway number one is this is going to be great for legal tech and great for lawyers in general, just because we're going to see more venture capital and more growth capital flow into legal over the course of the next couple of years on the backs of this fundraise by Clio. In terms of the direct benefits to Clio, this just gives us a lot of fuel to pour on the fire. It lets us double down on what's already working great in our product. It lets us continue to make and accelerate our investments in our product roadmap into areas like mid-market, where we're seeing a huge amount of growth, where we've already become the leading cloud provider for mid-market law firms with over 1,000 logos in the mid-market. We are continuing to accelerate our international expansion. And again, you and I are sitting down in Canada House across from Trafalgar Square today, welcoming over 200 lawyers from London and area that are part of the Clio ecosystem. And we've got, again, over 1,000 law firms in the UK. We have customers in over 130 countries. And that's in spite of the fact that we're not investing in a deliberate go-to-market motion in all but a handful of countries around the world. So we're seeing very strong signal that there's a tremendous international opportunity for Clio. And on technology, on AI, we're continuing to build out one of the largest and most capable AI teams in legal at Clio. And we'll continue to push the forefront of what AI innovation looks like for lawyers. And again, I see AI as really being a very exciting second chapter of Clio's story, and an opportunity that fits in so tightly with so many aspects of our products.
Yeah, and it's an incredible story and an incredible success. And one thing I've admired about Clio, and you touched on it there, is the collaboration. I always say collaboration is domination. Like you say, allowing people to build on top, and Clio really to be at the heart of it. And when you talk about transforming the legal experience for all, it really is all, isn't it? Lawyers are obviously a segment of that, and I just love everything about that, and how with AI now it's going to perhaps even be 10, 100x that. So, but let's take a step back, because there is still a lot of skepticism about AI. There is still a lot of concerns. So let's talk about maybe AI rapidly evolving, but some of the ethical considerations linked to that, and what's Clio sort of thinking about in terms of when it's looking at integrating AI into its platforms, especially in the context of legal work. What are you doing with regards to maintaining, ethical standards?
So there's a few things in there I'd love to unpack. First of all, I think some of the skepticism we're seeing around AI has to do with really truly understanding what the technology is capable of. And AI is really a fundamentally different kind of technology than what we've dealt with in the past. And I think where we've seen some of the early missteps with lawyers is expecting AI to work like tools of the past and then being surprised. If we look at, for example, the Stephen Schwartz case in Manhattan, and generating a brief with 5 cases that were cited but were hallucinated, cases that never existed. I think Stephen Schwartz made a very understandable mistake where he expected ChatGPT to work like Google or work like Wikipedia, which give us, generally speaking, 99.9% of the time, reliable answers and reliable data. We're not used to typing something into Google and having Google deliberately mislead us. We're not used to typing something into Wikipedia and seeing an article that is incorrect. Again, there's a mass, tens of hundreds of thousands of people correcting every edit to every Wikipedia page. You just don't find incorrect information all that often. And so the mechanics of large language models, understanding that hallucinations are not just a bug, but are an inherent property of these large language models, that you need to use these as assistants, but that you really check the work.
Yeah.
You use them to guide you in delivering your expertise, but not as a substitute for your expertise. These are all the critical things, I think, that there needs to be a lot of education in the legal industry of how to best leverage these tools. And when you leverage them in the right way, they are like having superpowers.
Yeah.
If you misuse them, they can be like kryptonite, and they can really harm you and your practice. Again, as our friend in Manhattan found out the hard way. So I think a lot of, back to your second question now, around just the ethical considerations around AI. I feel like in some ways I've rewound the clock to the early days of cloud computing and talking about the security and ethics of cloud computing and what you need to consider in leveraging the cloud as a lawyer.
Yeah.
I think there's a very similar consideration set with AI. Just how are you leveraging the tools, both as a developer of AI tools. I think Clio has a fundamental obligation to be thoughtful about security, thoughtful about the confidentiality of client data, thoughtful about what kind of ethical walls need to exist between different users in a firm and, of course, across firms and so on. And we need to do our best to highlight areas that the AI may be less dependable. And there's going to be some cases where we can provide absolute support and confidence in the response the AI is providing. And I think a really important goal for Clio and many people developing AI today is to be very explicit about where there may be uncertainty in the results that the AI is generating as well. So there's just a whole new frontier when it comes to ethics and security and confidentiality with AI that both software developers, application developers, and consumers of that technology need to become educated on.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? Constant education, because things are moving fast, and I always get a little bit skeptical when someone brands themselves as an AI expert, because I feel like we're still all learning, we're all evolving, and the key is to keep pace with the time. And our mutual friend Piers Linney, he gave a cracking quote that I'm actually going to say later at the event, that AI is not a once in a revolution opportunity. He believes AI is a once in a species opportunity, and the potential of this, if it's done correctly, and it's as bad as it's going to be ever as of today, it's only going to get exponentially better. I think that's fundamentally exciting for Clio, the legal tech industry, as you say. So let's go back to the funding round, because you've had the record funding round, and a mentor said to me many years ago, what gets done gets measured. So for you, with this sort of funding round, what specific benchmarks or achievements are you going to be using to measure the success of this ultimately?
It's a great question. We think about our impact in a few different dimensions. Again, our mission is to transform the legal experience for all. I think about our success as being measured in a few different dimensions. One is we have a very ambitious view for what our ultimate product footprint will look like. We want Clio to be the total encapsulated end-to-end workflow, all the way from intake to invoicing, with a layer of AI capabilities woven into every step of that journey for the client, that makes the client experience better and enables the lawyer doing the work to deliver the work product as seamlessly and effortlessly as possible. So we see one of the goals, one of the points of leverage we have is really expanding our product footprint over time. In some cases, that's going to be making our existing products more powerful. In other cases, it's going to be bringing out entirely new products to market. And we have a multi-year roadmap laid out of what that looks like. So one measure of success will be looking back in 3 or 4 years and saying, did we execute on everything we wanted to, or at least most of what we wanted to in that product roadmap? And there's twists and turns in those roadmaps that you can't always anticipate. But really, I think about, ultimately, we're trying to drive that transformation. We're going to drive that transformations by digitizing more and more elements of both the business of law and the practice of law for our customers. And we'll measure utilization as well. We want to see what kind of uptake we see with those products. We think about the scale of the company we're building as well. So at least one of the lenses, the facets investors will be looking at us with is, what does our revenue scale look like? We talk about a goal at Clio of We call it 1B29 as a shorthand, but it's generating $1 billion of annual recurring revenue by 2029. And that's a big swing. We're over $200 million of ARR today. We more than doubled our $100 million of ARR in 2021 and in just over 2 years. So we're growing extremely quickly, but we're not going to achieve that goal of 1B29 without executing at a very high level on many different fronts. So we're very excited about that opportunity, the product roadmap opportunity, the opportunity to deliver ultimately more value to our customers. But what's most exciting is if we do a great job of delivering that value, we see ourselves as indirectly unlocking a huge amount of access to justice and service of justice to the consumers of legal services in the world, and enabling Clio using lawyers to be at the forefront of technology, at the forefront of being able to maximize their reach in a way that they just simply wouldn't be able to without a tool like Clio.
Yeah, and I just love hearing, I have no doubt Clio will get where you want it to be. And, you just think back, Jack, pinch yourself, Unicorn, Centaur, Series F, not everyone gets the Series F. These are huge things that Clio has achieved. Forbes, I think 56th, on the Cloud 100, incredible. And one thing I've admired is also, as someone who's got a legal recruiting business, is your recruitment strategy. And I don't think you know this, but at ClioCon last year, I was in the lift with Ronnie Gurin, COO, and I think a great hire for the business. And he said something to me. I said, this was a really good conference. He said, Rob, we're still just getting started. And then a year on, Series F happens. So sitting here today, when you tell me that, I have no doubt that will happen. I think the way that you drive forwards, the recruitment, the purpose, it's absolutely, and we love being part of it. So let's talk about Clio Duo a little bit more then, in terms of AI.
Sure.
I'm probably not going to push you on any other products just yet, but I know that they're coming. So let's talk about this sort of streamlining of legal processes with these AI-driven insights. Can you share any sort of early stage feedback from the product, or any feedback from law firms? And what are you most excited about, particularly with Clio Duo?
Yeah, we're in early access to Clio Duo right now and receiving really positive feedback from the customers that are in that early access program. And they start using it on a daily basis to interact with Clio in a really natural way. This lets you interact with Clio, typing a natural language prompt into Clio Duo. You can ask Clio Duo to do anything from telling you what your work in progress is for a matter, to summarizing the recent communications you've had with a client, to helping you draft an email response to a client asking for a status update on their case. And we're continually expanding the footprint of the capabilities that Clio Duo can deliver to our customers. So we're seeing an extremely positive response to the present state of Clio Duo, and we have a really compelling roadmap for what the next couple of quarters look like in terms of the incremental skills and capabilities we're going to be delivering with Clio Duo. ClioCon, as you know, is just a couple of short weeks away. We're going to have some very exciting announcements around where we're taking Clio Duo next from the stage at ClioCon. So stay tuned for more. I'll try not to be too opaque, but there's some really exciting stuff coming down the pike as well.
Yeah, and I just get excited about every ClioCon. I genuinely think it's one of the best legal conferences in the world. I think the energy there, the people you meet, your keynote speech. I've implemented the Thunberg gratitude curve a lot actually since Nashville. These are little nuggets that you just need to be there to get this wisdom from people, because it could be one or two things that could change your
That's right.
your business. Okay, so let's talk about your new investors then. They've had experience in some other pretty transformative industries: Facebook, Netflix. We had Carol Baskin from Tiger King. Netflix, one of the fastest grossing shows of all time, come on the show. How will their expertise, if at all, influence Clio's growth and approach to revolutionizing ultimately legal tech space?
One of the things we loved about the lead investor that we brought on board, New Enterprise Associates, or NEA, is that they have a proven track record through a number of very recognizable companies, transformed a number of verticals in a really profound way. And their investment thesis is pretty straightforward, which is we back industry-leading companies that are transforming their respective industries. And they have a huge amount of expertise and, importantly, a network of CEOs and other executives at those companies that can help us and collaborate with us and help us understand what taking Clio to the next level is. So that's one, is just, there's a saying I really like, which is history does not repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And when you look at the vertical software industry and you look at whether it's legal or real estate or short-term rentals or construction or restaurants, companies like Toast, companies like Procore, companies like Airbnb, our investors have backed all of these companies and have a playbook, again, that there's patterns you can take from one industry to another and have really significant impact. So that's one dimension that we're really excited about. The second dimension is investors that have seen the 250 million ARR to $1 billion ARR path and know what that story looks like. And again, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. What are some of the patterns and some of the recruits, some of the executive hires, some of the company processes, some of the governance and compliance and accounting standards you might want to implement to make that path as smooth as possible. And there's very few companies that have entered that rarefied revenue scale, and there's a unique set of challenges you start to encounter there. So them being able to help us on that path is another thing I really value. The last thing, maybe not the last thing, the third thing I'll mention is a potential IPO. Clio has ambitions to eventually become a public company. I've talked about wanting to build an enduring 100-year company. And something that I really truly believe is the public markets are a fantastic place for that kind of an enduring company to live. And that's an eventual, and by the way, not a mandatory stop for us on our journey. But if the stars align, if the public market conditions are such, and the company profile is such that we think an IPO is a viable path, that's something we very well may pursue. And NEA has taken more than 250 companies public in its history, more than almost any other Silicon Valley investor. So tremendous background and experience in the IPO story. Our other backers, including Goldman Sachs, Sixth Street, Tidemark, Google's venture arm Capital G, these folks all have a ton of experience in helping take companies public as well. So that was another dimension. And finally, the last thing I'll mention is the people you're bringing on board, both figuratively and literally, really matter. The Tony Florence, the co-CEO at NEA, has joined Clio's board, and that's of course one of the most important roles in the company. The board helps steer the company, of course, helps recruit the leadership of the company, helps provide really important strategic input to the company, and so the individuals that are joining the investor group to me matters a lot. These are people you've got to trust very deeply. And I couldn't be more excited about the group of investors we've got around the table as part of the Series F.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And again, I think to hopefully not misquote you in one of your speech, not what if, what is, when it is, Clio's there, and if one day it IPOs, absolutely, it's exciting times. Okay, let's talk a little bit about resistance, because, I've worked with a lot of lawyers, there is some resistance at times when it comes to technology. So you've spoken about this sort of technology adoption, particularly with AI and increasingly growing. How's Clio approach, if at all, again, evolved in terms of overcoming any initial resistance from law firms that may be hesitant about adopting new technologies?
So I think there's, maybe I'll address that question in a couple of different dimensions. I think one is the trope almost of the lawyer that is resistant to adopting technology and backward looking and not wanting to embrace technology, I believe is more the fault of technology companies than lawyers. When I came to the legal industry in 2008 and did a survey of the software that lawyers were using, the first thing me and Ryan did when we founded the company was really carefully looking at the competitive landscape and validating the hypothesis that there was even a market for something like Clio.
Yeah.
And when we looked at the incumbents in the space, when we looked at the on-premise software that existed for lawyers, it was laughably bad. I mean, so bad that me and Ryan actually laughed at the user interfaces for these products. I remember Amicus Attorney, like literally had the desktop metaphor taken to the extreme and had a literal desktop and even a Rolodex that you'd flip through to access your contacts. It's skeuomorphism taken to the extreme.
Yeah.
Other products like Time Matters were literally like editing a database with the thinnest veneer of lipstick on top of that database, calling itself a user interface. The software was horrible. And when I looked at that software, I said, like, no wonder lawyers don't use technology. Like, this stuff sucks.
Yeah.
Full stop. And what if, we created beautiful, easy to use software? Was the question me and Ryan asked ourselves, and would lawyers adopt that? And guess what? We did that and created one of the most successful companies in legal tech history that was just valued at $3 billion in the Series F and generated the largest investment round. It turns out getting lawyers to adopt software and do so willingly is just about creating great user interfaces, creating accessible, intuitive software. And lawyers are like any other human being. We want to work with stuff like an iPhone interface that is intuitive, that's beautiful, that bends to our needs rather than the inverse. And again, it's really as simple as that. And I think when lawyers see the value in adopting technology, they actually lean in really aggressively. And we're seeing that with the AI adoption cycle. I mentioned earlier, we're seeing the level of AI adoption in 1 year that took the cloud 16 years to get to. And so I think when lawyers intuitively see the value of a technology, they embrace it with open arms. Yeah. Now, there's certainly a curve there, and there's the usual technology diffusion curve where we have early adopters and the early majority and late majority. There's no doubt there's laggard lawyers that do not embrace technology, but that's true of any industry. And I think what every lawyer needs to realize in terms of maybe the ultimate motivating factor to why you need to adopt technology, why you need to adopt the cloud, why you need to adopt AI is you will just get beaten by lawyers that are embracing that technology if you don't. And it's just really as simple as that. Yeah. If you think you can bury your head in the sand about AI and just not embrace it, again, you don't need to worry about AI taking your job. You do need to worry about a lawyer leveraging AI, beating you in the marketplace by being better, faster, more capable, more cost efficient, thanks to the fact they're using AI, and you will get left behind.
Yeah, it is so true. And so many things that you say there, I just want to kind of emphasize and clear why Clio's done so well. And I'd encourage people, you're client-centered, and I would encourage people to go and read your book, The Client-Centered Law Firm. Everything that you're thinking about really puts them at the heart of this and listening. And we had your Chief Product Officer on the show before, Heymonth, who's an incredible individual, another great hire. And he said a real great nugget. He said, in product, we've got an expression called fall in love with the problem, not the solution. And that comes to your point about what if we just created something that's beautiful that people could actually fall in love with and want to use it, and then lo and behold, $3 billion, 900 million raised, all these amazing things. Jack, it's always a masterclass with you, but I've got two quick final questions that might throw you off guard before we closed. What is one skill you have today of a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company that you would not want to lose tomorrow as the leader of one of the world's largest legal tech companies? What's the one skill?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think a very important skill for me is communication. Yeah. And really, at the end of the day, I think my job is articulating a vision of the future that others in the company can orbit around and can buy into, and that I can help riff on that idea, and that we can all mutually believe in this future that doesn't yet exist and go and pursue that. Yeah. And so I think a key skill that I think any great founder CEO has is basically the ability to see a world that is 4 or 5 years off, for that world to seem kind of obvious to them. Like that's that's the way I felt with the cloud. It's the way I feel like with AI. Like, this is the way things need to be and are going to be. How can I drag the industry, even if they're kind of kicking and screaming at different junctures, into that new world? And then communicating that vision. So I think that's something that is a skill of mine. It's something I can always get better at, but I think it would have been impossible to get to where we are today without that being a key skill.
VC, vision and communication. So let's go back to day one of Clio, Jack, before we close.
Day one, very scrappy.
Have you exceeded what you ever thought was imaginable? And if so, what's helped you reach these unprecedented levels of success?
I mean, even in our wildest dreams, Ryan and I didn't ever conceive of Clio being the scale of company it is today. And I don't even mean it was beyond our dreams. It's something we couldn't have even conceived of.
Yeah.
And I don't say that, with any sense of false humility. It just wasn't in our wildest dreams what the company would turn into.
Yeah.
Initially, we wanted to really build what some, call a lifestyle business, and some use that almost as a pejorative. And we thought maybe this could be 4 or 5 employees over time, servicing a few hundred solo small firm lawyers. That was the original idea for Clio. And I think in some ways we caught lightning in a bottle. I think we launched the product at exactly the right time. I think a year earlier, we probably would have been too early for the market. It wouldn't have been ready. I think a year later, we would have been too late, and we would have been the second or third product on the market. In October of 2008, we were the very first cloud-based LPM on the market. We, I think, entered the market at a time that was almost perfect in terms of the rising appetite for the cloud. And then we worked really hard at executing super well. And once we started to see this awesome product market fit, we just leaned in super hard to execute better than anyone else in the market. And it quickly became a competitive market. And we realized, winning this market is going to be about having the best product and just being relentless on executing on the product. And then I would say another major pivot was one of our early investors, Christoph Jans, helped me and Ryan understand that raising venture capital might be the right path for us, which again, we originally were thinking about more of a lifestyle business, more of a self-funded model. And we realized there's this almost paradoxical quality of SaaS businesses where the faster you grow, the faster you're burning cash because all of your customer acquisition costs are front loaded. And he helped us understand that, hey, look, like you might build this nice little lifestyle business, but there might be a venture-funded competitor that comes and grabs the whole market and makes that lifestyle business impossible to sustain. And why don't you swing for the fences and try to become that big player? And that was a real psychological shift for me and Ryan. But that was back in late 2008 that we kind of shifted our mindset to let's take a big swing, and that's a high risk swing. You might miss, you might not take, and we're lucky, and I think through a lot of hard work and good execution, turned the company into a success.
Yeah, and I think I said before, new level, new devil, and
Yes.
absolutely, continues to rise. And Mentor said to me, it's better to be first than it is to be better. But I actually correct that. I think it's better to be first and continue to be better, and which is what Clio is continuing to do. So, Jack, it's been an absolute pleasure sharing the mics with you, Rob, in person at Canada House. Can't describe how beautiful the setting is where we're recording today.
Pretty incredible.
But for people who have been living under a rock, where can they find out more about Clio? And is there anything else you'd like to share before we finish today?
Clio, check out Clio.com. Check out us on X and Instagram at GoClio. I am Newtonian on Instagram if you want to follow me there. LinkedIn's a great place to stay on top of some of my thoughts about the industry. And this was great, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. So from all of us at the Legally Speaking podcast for now, over and out. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. If you like the content here, why not check out our world-leading content and collaboration hub, the Legally Speaking Club, over on Discord. Go to our website, www.legallyspeakingpodcast.com, for the link to join our community there. Over and out.